appreciate Commissioner Brown donating his cabin and giving us the opportunity to be here. It's a beautiful place to be. And also I'd like to thank the 6 county staff for the lunch. It's always good. We appreciate what they do there. We'd like to recognize the governor. We're glad to have him with us. We appreciate what he does for us. And with that, we'll go ahead and begin. The first speaker we have is Mike Styler, Director, Utah State Department of Wildlife Resources.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Governor. I think we need to thank Paul Edwards. Where's Paul? Paul's, was it your grandpa or great-grandpa? Great-grandpa and grandpa homesteaded this property. Is that correct? So thanks to them, we're here today with a beautiful private cabin. So we're glad to be here. Department of Natural Resources is pleased every year to give a little report at this gathering. And it's been a very busy year for Department of Natural Resources, starting with fires, Brian Head fire, and you know, it's not always as dark as it seems. We had a contract for about $70,000 to do NEPA work on the Panguitch Municipal Watershed, which burned. Now we don't have to spend that $70,000 on the NEPA study. We can just go reseed it. So NEPA studies go out the window when you burn something like that. But look at that fire and all the fires that we're having as opportunity. We are going to have the best landscape ever in the next few years. And I can point out similar instances with fires we've had around the state where 5 years later it was the best grazing and the best wildlife habitat that we've had in maybe 100 years. So we're going to take that lemon and turn it into lemonade, and it's through our watershed restoration program in concert with what the Forest Service and BLM help us with. Let me talk just a moment about wildlife resources. Many of you know that we have a new interim director of wildlife resources because Greg Sheehan went back and is the acting director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I can tell you, I've already seen his fingerprints on at least 3 decisions that have come out of Fish and Wildlife. One, they drew a line across Arizona and New Mexico, Highway 40, and said Mexican wolves don't need to go north of that line in order to be recovered. That's a huge change in their position because they were saying up until a few months ago, well, we've got to have the southern half of Colorado and the southern half of Utah for Mexican wolf recovery. Well, they've changed their tune now to where they don't even need the southern half of Colorado and Utah. They don't even need the north half of Arizona or New Mexico. And that's a huge change. Fish and Wildlife also made an interesting plea to the court. You know, we've been sued about state management of prairie dogs, and we've been doing a great job on prairie dog management. They're doing great, but we were sued, and the Fish and Wildlife Service said, "You're not doing as good as we would do. We need it back." And they were joined by I can't remember the name of the organization that joined with them, but recently Fish and Wildlife Service said, well, we'd like to back away from that lawsuit and give the state some more time to show that their management plan really is working for prairie dogs. And I saw Greg's fingerprints all over that, but the court slapped that. They didn't agree to that. There's several other things that Greg is doing. I'm really pleased that he's back there. And we've got a great staff with Mike Fowkes that's taken their place at Fish and Wildlife, or at Utah Division of Wildlife Resources. Big difference between state wildlife services and federal Fish and Wildlife Services. They have the same philosophy, and the philosophy we have is to create more habitat for grazing and for the wildlife. And when there's fires, get ahead of the replanting, reseeding, and make lemonade out of the lemon. And better than that is to work ahead of the fire and take out all the burnable material and reseed it before it ever burns. Those are two of our divisions. Sovereign lands and fire management and fish and game. State parks are busy doing things in this area. As you look out off the overlook that we saw this morning, I could see several state parks, and they're doing great. Thanks for your patronage there. Basically, with the great leader we have of the governor, our folks are excited to come to work every day because they do work that they love to do. And I think it shows. We try to recruit the best and then let them do the work that they're trained to do. So, any questions? Appreciate Sixth County Association of Governments. You're very supportive of the work that we're doing in this area, and we want to be very responsive, and if you ever have a problem, we'll try and fix it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate the remarks. Our next speaker will be Rory Reynolds from the Utah Department of Wildlife Resources.
Thank you. Thank you, Sixth County Association of Governments. This has been a great outing. It's been going on for a number of years, and I think every year whenever we get together and do these tours, it's a great opportunity to see the good things that are going on in all the Sixth County area. I know there's a lot of more important people here that you'd much rather hear from than myself, and so rather than trying to come up with a few inspirational words, I will say this one thing: each and every one of you is the inspiration. You are the inspiration. The way you work together, the collaboration that comes together, the things that you're able to accomplish on the ground is phenomenal. And it's because of your willingness to come together and focus on solving problems and work in a collaborative manner. And I hope that each and every one of you will become disciples, so to speak, and spread out wherever you go to show how collaboration can work. Because that's the way we're going to solve a lot of the problems that we're faced with. And I think the lessons that you've learned in working here on Monroe Mountain and with the Watershed Restoration Initiative and the Grazing Improvement Program and all the other collaborative efforts that are going on is the way forward to address many of the problems that we have. So I'll just, if there's any questions of me, I'm around, or you can ask them now, or I'll turn it over to Lance.
It is a real pleasure to be here with all of you today. I grew up in Kusharam, little town at the bottom of the hill, and this is what I call my mountain, and everyone else calls this their mountain. So I used to work for Paul's grandpa. I'm sure some of these old logs I probably put on that old fence right there. He hired me as probably real cheap labor, so I'm invested here. Anyway, Cornell Christensen, I don't know where Cornell is, but Cornell has been hired as our deputy director, and he's been a great asset. He's been down on the Bryan Head fire. If anyone has any questions about the Bryan Head fire, corner Cornell today. He should be up here instead of me. But we have fire closures throughout the state of Utah. The only place we do not have a fire closure is in Cache County, and incorporated cities and towns do not have fire closures unless their local politicians and law enforcement have put fire closures there. So we have fire closures throughout the state right now. We've seen what the Bryan Head fire is doing to us, and that's where we're at on fire closures. The BLM fire closures are a little bit different than the Forest Service fire closures, are a little bit different than the state fire closures, but there's restrictions on all those lands. The Monroe Mountain collaboration has been a wonderful collaboration. I was hired just after most of that hard work was wrapped up, but it has been really neat to see the work that Jason Kling and the Forest Service have been doing up here on the mountain. It really looks good to me as a resource professional. The role that the division takes is we work with the private landowners up here. We prepare forest stewardship plans for the private landowners who are willing to let us work with them to give them prescriptions on how to manage their private properties. And so Nick, who used to work for us, he got together a landscape scale restoration grant that's huge. And we're spending that on private lands. The Joint Chiefs grant that came through the Forest Service and the Natural Resources Conservation Service, we're spending the Natural Resources Conservation Service portion on private lands. And so that's kind of how we fit in. We're technical service providers for the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So our fuels reduction project, I'd like to report to some of the county commissioners who are here. We just completed a 4-mile fuel break north or southeast of Fillmore, about 4 miles. That'll protect a little subdivision up in that area. The Juab County fuels crew is ran through the county, but we pay them with grant money to do the projects. And they are working up at a place called Old Pinery up east of Nephi, and then out to Mammoth, out by Eureka, they've done work. Our fuels crew has been doing fuel clearing up by Spring City. I don't see many Sanpete County commissioners here today for some reason. And we just finished up a large contract up by Fairview, up above Fairview Heights, that is really going to be a protection for Fairview Heights. And another contract we just finished up in Ephraim Canyon around Camp Utibica. So those are some really important projects we work on. The central area, we've had a lot of small human-caused fires. It's been amazing how many human-caused fires we've had. Mostly roadsides, but you name it, we've had it. But they've all been pretty small so far. And knock on wood, they stay small. So our new fire policy, I'll just close with that. All the counties in the 6-county area have signed on with the new fire policy. And almost every city and town in our 6-county area has signed on with the new fire policy. And that means we're all working together as partners to reduce the fuels in our 6-county area together, so we can hopefully start getting on top of these huge catastrophic wildfires. That's all I have.
Thanks, Ron. See, Fred Hayes, I don't believe is here. If that's correct. Then our next speaker will be Tom Tippett, Utah Department of Ag and Food.
I'm here representing the Department of Ag and Food today. Luann Adams was unable to make it, so I wanted to reiterate the department's commitment to agriculture in the state of Utah. I'm part of the Grazing Improvement Program. I'm a coordinator in the Central Region, and I've been involved with the Monroe Mountain Working Group since the beginning. The Monroe Mountain Working Group is a huge collaborative, and it took lots and lots of work to get to the end result. We heard from Steve this morning, and within our collaborative, we said that Steve was the one that his job was to herd cats, because as a group, a fragmented group, we wouldn't be able to get anything done. I also want to call attention to our co-chairs. Bill Hopkin, who was my predecessor, was a co-chair along with Mary O'Brien, who's sitting back there. Steve may be the ones that are herding cats, but Bill and Mary are the ones that actually got things done. They're the ones that coordinated, got things implemented, actually coerced us to writing things down. I want to congratulate and call attention to their monumental efforts to get things done on the Monroe Mountain Working Group. Today, I'm a co-chair along with Mary, and although most of the heavy lifting is done, I want to tell you a little bit of why the Department of Agriculture is involved with that collaborative. I work with farmers and ranchers in the central part of Utah, and I've got asked several different times, Monroe Mountain, that's a forest, you're working with trees, and if you look around and the treatments that you see today are all in forested, heavy timber areas. So why is a grazer involved with trees? aspen trees are the second most productive sites on the mountain. Riparians by far are more productive, but the acreage-wise they're very small. Aspen trees are second most productive, but probably occupy a very large area on the mountain. When I say productive, that means they produce habitat and forage for lots of different animals. In a good productive aspen stand here on Monroe Mountain, we're talking about 800 pounds of forage to the acre. We're standing in an aspen stand. What they call this is a cereal aspen stand. And you look around and you see all these fir trees and you say, what are you talking about, aspen stand? Look around, there are aspen trees present here. This was a small disturbance, and what's coming back? These are small aspen trees. Look else what's coming back here. There's forbs and grasses. We stopped on the road and we looked into that draw. There are other places on the mountain that they've done things. When you treat aspen stands, this is what you get back. Gangbusters. It doesn't take very long for an aspen stand to lose productivity. We're talking about Christmas tree size fir trees. We go from 800 pounds of forage, this stuff, to about 250 pounds of forage. If you walked into those trees, deep trees back there, you're talking 50 pounds or less of forage. Across the mountain, Bob, a predecessor on the mountain, did some studies, and they felt like they were losing hundreds of acres of aspen trees a year. That equates to lost forage and lost productivity. We did a simple calculation, and we thought over the last 100 years we lost 8 million pounds of forage on the mountain. That is why the Department of Agriculture is involved. These little things right here, we've already found out everything loves to eat it. So the best way to see a success in a treatment is to be able to protect those things. One of the easy ways to protect aspen trees from cattle and for sheep is to exclude them from that pasture until those things get to be 6 feet tall. We, as the Department of Agriculture, is committed to having agriculture and grazing in the ecosystem because, one, it is good for the land if we can manage it correctly, and two, it's economically viable and it helps towns just like Casharam, where we started today. So the reason I'm here is we helped with coming up with strategies and implementing infrastructure to help protect these things and at the same time keep livestock on the mountain while these things are going. I'm going to be available. I don't want to take too much time, but if you have any questions as you're going through today, I'm available. We're going to see a couple different treatments through the day. We're going to see some structures that I've helped implement and build. If you have any questions, come and ask, and I'm willing to take any time it takes to meet specifics or talk about specific things. So thank you very much. Is there any questions now? Sir? So Jody said, mention the GIP contribution. So what the GIP contribution was in infrastructure, fencing, pond clearing, pipelines, water troughs. We put $350,000 into that particular project along with some other projects, but we put quite a bit of money in to get the infrastructure right so when the treatments happen, they will be protected and we can keep livestock on the mountain. Any other questions, sir?
I have your question. Give me your thoughts on the Brian Head fire. What
So that's outside of my region.
I know. That's why you can say whatever you want to say.
Okay, continue.
Again, I know there's things we've done wrong and there's things we've done right. We've got to find the optimal way to do these things together. And so I'm just curious about your thoughts. You're talking about protecting, the young saplings here and what we need to do. The bark beetle's an issue, not being able to thin and harvest, the forest appropriately. I just would like you to give your opinion on that.
Because it's out of my region, I'm not familiar with. Let's just say that exact same happened here in these type of conditions. Large scale fire across the large landscape, what would be the results? On this forest here, and I'm assuming the same thing down there in Brian Head, you're going to get a flush of this type of response. We're going to get a lot of aspen trees. We saw that on the Twitchell fire, we saw that on the Dutton, we saw that in these areas, and we're probably going to see it on Monroe. We're going to see a flush of this. That does two things. That's going to have a lot of pressure available, or a lot of forage available for lots of different things. We need to be able to protect those in some ways. We need to be able to get most of these trees up to 6 foot tall. Large scale, and we've seen it on this mountain too, if we can do it large scale and be able to spread out pressure so they're not all on the same 100-acre area, we can be pretty successful in doing that. What we need to do on this, if that happened on this mountain, I'm assuming the same thing on Bryan Head, we need to put some infrastructure in place so we can control livestock. We need to have fences in place, we need water in place so we can move them around. We need to do some things with wildlife so we can move those things around. But I think the end result is a healthier forest, although a large scale is going to be a large scale of all one cereal size, and we need to be able to continue to manage that in the future. But I think the overall result is going to be a good resource if we can manage it into the future. Any other questions? I'm available all day, so just hit me up if you have any more.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, our next speaker is Reg Johnson, Utah Public Lands Policy.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. Our director, Kathleen Clark, said to give her condolences for not being able to make it and asked if I'd come and say a few words, and been asked to talk a little bit about the county resource management plans, the state resource management plans, and then also a little bit about the grazing working group. So the county and state resource management plans, I think, goes into a little bit of what the governor was asking about, is, you know, how do we manage these plans or these forests going into the future, and are there opportunities out there? And I want to thank the 6-county AOG for doing the data collection on this area, and all the county commissioners for all the great work that they've done in putting their plans together. Those plans, a few of them have already been completed, and we're going to have more of them. Well, all of them will be completed by August 1st. So good job on the work there, and then we'll be rolling those up into the state plan. I think that will give us an opportunity to identify some of the issues that we've seen locally from being on the ground for 150 years in these areas, logging these areas for 100 and some years, grazing these areas for 150 years, and being good stewards of the land. A lot of the local folks have great institutional knowledge of those areas, and we're seeing that come up through the county resource management plan. So we're really excited with what we're seeing there, and look forward to working with our federal partners in the coordination process and the cooperating agency agreement process in identifying what some of those issues are that we can work collaboratively with together and create healthier landscapes that are productive and we have great multiple use. The state plan should be done sometime December, so we're looking to get that out there, and it will be kind of a compilation of the county plans. We're seeing a lot of great things coming up through the county plans that we want to incorporate into the state plan, and I think you'll see some interesting and useful information coming out of the planning process. The other item that they asked me to touch on was this grazing working group that we've been working on through about the last year and a half. We've been almost to every county in the state now. I think we've been to 26 counties and had 26 working group meetings with the producers around the state. And then we've had over 100 meetings with BLM, Forest Service, National Park Service, and other folks trying to work out some of the issues that have come up. As you know, in Bunkerville a couple years ago and the Malheur Refuge, there was a lot of animosity in the grazing community, and we tried to step ahead of that. And I want to thank Department of Natural Resources, Department of Agriculture, the Attorney General's office, our office. Those leaders got together, recognized that something needed to be done to try and head off that kind of an issue here in Utah. And there's been a lot of pressure recently, and it goes back, 40 or 50 years with some of the concerns from the grazing community, and we haven't been able to really address those and move forward with them. And we see a lot of pressure from some environmental groups. There's groups out there like the Western Watersheds that just don't want any grazing on public lands. And they're feeling that pressure out there. And when you feel pressure, and it affects your family, and it affects your livelihood, and it affects your culture, people get upset about that, and understandably so. When you're attacked as a community, or you're attacked as an individual or something, it does raise a lot of animosity. So what we've been doing is trying to get ahead of that and get out there, meet with them individually and say, you know, what can we do to kind of turn this tide? And I want to thank the Forest Service and the BLM and the Park Service for sitting down with us and looking for solutions to some of these things. There are solutions out there. We've had some AUMs returned or increased on the BLM side. We look forward to doing that the same with the Forest Service. And when I look out across these landscapes and realize that we've been grazing these for over 150 years, and they're still in great shape, and we're doing projects like the Monroe Mountain Project where we're going to be bringing back more forage, as Tom was saying right before me, there is an opportunity to bring more grazing back into these areas and still maintain them as a great place to visit, but also use them as an opportunity for production. So, open to any questions if you have any. If not, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rich.
I just want to tell you where I come from. I grew up over here in Bicknell, about an hour from here. You know, I'm 65 years old now, so I can remember when I was about 10 years old. My dad was and mom were business people in Wayne County. Built motels, restaurants, stores, got involved in the timber industry, had a sawmill, worked in the uranium industry. And I can remember as a 10-year-old, and my dad, and all the people that worked for him. He had about a 35 logging crew, 35 members from Escalante and from Wayne County. And they would meet out about halfway between Escalante and Bicknell, and he had timber sale out in Jacobs Valley, out in that country where Purple Lake and Blue Lake are. Well, at nighttime, you would see the logging trucks come into the Wayne County Valley from what we call daylight, and the dust trails. And we used to count those dust trails, and they were upwards of 25 to 30 dust trails of loggers hauling logs off that mountain. Now my dad and 90% of those guys cut dead trees. There was a beetle kill infestation on the Boulder Mountain back in the 30s or 40s. And so these guys built sawmills and went out and got that dead timber, brought it to town and milled it. My dad hauled a lot of his to Salt Lake to housing developments, a lot of it to Richfield, and then to California. There was a sawmill in Torrey, a sawmill in Teasdale. There were 4 sawmills in Bicknell, including my dad's. There was one in Lyman and one in Lowell. Today there's one that works kind of part-time. So you can see what needs to be done. You know, brine heads is just a symptom of what needs to be done on these forests. Whether it's the Dixie and the Boulder, whether it's the Fish Lake, whether it's the Manti LaSalle. We've got a lot of work to do, and I'm appreciative to all of this collaborative group, this Monroe Mountain Working Group, and I did sit in on a few of the meetings, and Bill Hopkins, I used to sit on the BLM State Advisory Board with him, great guy, and I can see that would be a big job. And you didn't move forward unless you all agreed, and 21 partners to make an agreement is a pretty tough deal to do. And so this is the kind of thing that we need to do on the rest of these mountains. This mountain used to be sick, but it's come a long ways. It's come a long ways. It's got some work to go, but we're making progress. And Mary O'Brien, congratulations for your work that you did on this. I sat on with Mary on the Dixie RAC committee for a while. Didn't always agree with her. Sometimes we agreed to disagree. But anyway, and I've worked with a lot of you in other areas. I see the Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife here, Troy Justice and Kendall Bagley, and the work that they do with pheasants and wildlife and chuckers and all the good things that they do. And Vance does a great job. And the mayor from Richfield and the county commissioners. You know, I just enjoy working with all you folks, associating with you, and trying to make a difference. And that's what we need to do. And Ralph told me he really likes this power line. I used to be the Garcane manager, so he can have a hot shower in his cabin. That power line runs from down at Casherm all the way up to Monroe Peak, which is one of the greatest translator sites in the state of Utah. And Mike Parsons behind the camera there with KTTA, his grandpa pioneered the translator system all the way from Nephi, west of Nephi to Monroe Peak to Barney Top to the state line. And so, you know, really we're one big family of God's creation, and we need to work together. But we got some serious problems, and we need to address them. And one of them is this beetle-killed timber. Because I've got some property up here on Monroe, and all those beautiful pine trees are now dead, except for those about 8 inches and smaller. And so I've got some people that are cutting those down, but the only way you can get this stuff to grow again is to disturb it and cut them down. And fire's a good thing, but I heard somebody say over there when we were looking off that Monument Hill, the more disturbance, the better. And so personally, I kind of like motorized disturbance because I think you can get in there, you can use the resource, and then this stuff comes back like crazy. Some of you may remember Hugh Thompson. He was the supervisor of the Dixie. When Hugh decided to retire and go to the Black Hills of South Dakota, he said, "Carl, will you take me fishing out on the Boulder Mountain?" And I said, "Yeah." And we took him out there. And as we were driving along, he says, "See that stand of timber? Needs to be thinned. The conifers need to come down so that we get this stuff growing again. That's our watershed. That's our water holder." And we all know that. So let's get her done. Okay, let's get her done. So thanks for all your work. I don't want to take any more of the governor's time. Appreciate working with you. Have any questions, get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl, for your comments. Governor, looks like you're on.
I didn't know that. I'm happy to take advantage of the opportunity. Well, thank you. Representative, thanks for your kind words and good suggestions, and to all of you, it's great to be here in this beautiful part of our state. I get the question all the time, do you enjoy being the governor? And I do enjoy being the governor. I started out in local government, as many of you know, as a county commissioner, and I really do believe in a bottom-up approach, not a top-down. But I've enjoyed being governor for these past nearly 8 years. But I can tell you some days are better than others. And this is a better day. Being with you guys here and enjoying, thanks Commissioner Brown for opening up your cabin here and your location here for us all together. And as we can see, as we talk about these things, these are very important issues and they're very complex. There is, in fact, no silver bullet to solve all the problems and avoid any of the challenges that we face into the future. It really is going to take us working together and finding answers to the complex questions and see if we can't, in fact, make things better. And we see illustrations and examples of where people have come in and made things better. This is a location that, at least as I hear the story, has become significantly improved because of the work and collaboration and cooperation of many people. And I believe that's really how we're going to be able to achieve good results, is the collaboration and the cooperation. Now, I expect that all of you had an enjoyable 4th of July. I enjoy the 4th of July for a number of reasons. One, it's a chance for me as a politician and a patriot and somebody who believes in our country to kind of recharge my batteries and remember what's important about what we do. You're all part of that effort. Bringing back patriotism and understanding freedom and liberty and opportunity, not necessarily guarantees, but opportunities which America gives to all of us. And I also like listening to the bands. I'm an old trumpet player. I was never very good, but I enjoy playing the trumpet, and the brass band kind of gets my whole heart pumping, and I get some smile on my face and a kind of a little more step in my walk, and I'm just a happy guy. I love to hear the band. And some of you may know, may not know, I had an opportunity to lead the Utah Symphony. One of the perks, I guess, that come with being a governor is they invited me to come and lead the Utah Symphony. They came down here to southern Utah and we played at the national parks. really a unique opportunity for us to kind of take the symphony out of Salt Lake City and the big metropolitan area and out to more rural parts of Utah. They asked me, what song would you like to lead them in? And I wanted to lead them in a march, John Philip Sousa, the March King, and do the Stars and Stripes Forever. And all of you know the Stars and Stripes Forever, dum 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 dum. And it was written by John Philip Sousa, and kind of he'd been to Europe, he's coming back to America, and kind of in a spontaneous spirit of patriotism, thinking about our flag, and wrote the Stars and Stripes Forever. It's our national march now. In the 70s, they declared it as the America's national march. He wrote it in 1896. And although I can't verify this, I think that somewhere in his mind he was thinking this new star on the flag, Utah. The Stars and Stripes Forever kind of encouraged him to come up with this very famous march. So I've had the opportunity, and I think about it. I was at the parade in Provo yesterday, and the brass bands from the high school was playing, and one of them played the Stars and Stripes Forever. I mention that to you because you cannot get good music, whether it's a march or a waltz or classical music or even rock and roll, unless everybody plays their part correctly. What's the most famous part of the Stars and Stripes Forever? It's the smallest instrument in the band, the piccolo. We all clear, and they always get, the piccolo players are just so thrilled to play that because it's the one time they get a chance to be kind of front and center and people notice them. Smallest instrument, they play their little part, and they always get a nice ovation. And again, it illustrates the point, it doesn't matter how big or how small, the question is, do you play your part accordingly, appropriately? And so it doesn't matter whether you're the governor, I'm like the tuba, I guess. But my oompa oompa is certainly an important part of the band, but it may not be the most important part. The roles you play, whether you're the trumpet, the clarinet, the violin, or the piccolo, are equally important, if not more so, in having a good sound and a good music. So I crudely use that as an illustration of what we really need to do more of, and that's make sure we understand our roles and that we have a role to play, but it needs to be in concert, in collaboration with the other people playing their own instruments. And I believe that if we do that, we can end up making beautiful music, number one. Number two, we're going to have good outcomes. And certainly what we need to do to have forests that are healthy, have our animal habitat that's healthy, to protect the animals, again, whether it be the elk herds, the deer herds, the bighorn sheep, our fisheries, our water supply, all the things that come with, particularly as we see here in this beautiful mountain setting, really means to be an optimal approach we take for healthy. It's not one lose and somebody wins or vice versa. It really is what can we do to be optimal in utilizing our public lands and our mountain sceneries and all the things that go along with this beautiful setting we see here today. Last but not least, and we're working with the commissioners today and spending time, I'm very concerned and very optimistic, but still concerned about the economy of rural Utah. And we've got to find ways, in fact, to make sure that jobs can still be created, that in fact the rising generations from the rural communities have opportunities for their children, for the children to stay and find meaningful jobs. There's probably a lot of things we need to be doing better. It's going to take us working together to make sure we find what the key is to open up economic development in rural Utah. But I can tell you I'm absolutely 100% committed that we will not rest until all 29 counties, all 245 cities have economic opportunity. And we should not rest until that happens. And we're doing pretty good in most areas, but we still have areas that are of concern that we need to work together on. So as part of my rural jobs area of 25,000, we need to work with you all to make sure we're providing every opportunity we can to make the rural counties and rural cities healthy, meaning that they have economic opportunity. So again, thanks for all you're doing and what you're going to have done and what you're going to continue to do. We have a great state. We're doing very well, overall. But we recognize there are pockets that need improvement. And if we work together, I'm confident that we can, in fact, have great outcomes. So thank you very much. Great to be with you.
So there's a lot of aspen and conifer on this mountain. A fairly large percentage of Monroe Mountain has this type of forest on it. The nice thing is having worked with the working group and worked on the EIS that we completed, all of the aspen and conifer on this mountain that we've driven through today and that you could see, for as far as you can see, that's all covered under this EIS. That plus the pinny juniper work that we're doing and the sagebrush work that Craig referenced, you add all of that up, that's how we get to the 58% of the Monroe unit that's covered under existing NEPA. So we've done the planning, we've worked through the environmental analysis process, and now it's finally good to be on the side where we're getting to implement and do these treatments on the ground. We're really just getting started. We've got much more work ahead of us to do, but I'm extremely excited with where we're headed. We've got a good plan in place. We took the right approach to develop that plan. We've got support for that plan, and now we'll spend the next decade carrying it out and doing these good treatments. So questions, I'm around. Adam?
The forest looks great. I commend you on a very healthy looking forest. I see a lot of food here. We passed some cows coming in. Does your NEPA talk to increasing AUMs with the forest being healthier?
No, the NEPA does not talk about increasing AUMs. As a working group, we've talked about that. We understand that as we do these treatments, we're going to be creating additional forage, and maybe at some point in the future, we'll be able to sustain an increase, but we haven't really got to that point yet.
Do you have an idea on when you're going to take a look at that?
Not yet. I think that we need to get several thousand acres of treatment under our belt first. Part of it is developing and having enough forage just to support the existing wildlife and livestock that we've got up here. You heard Tom, I think he mentioned 7 or 8 million tons of forage have been lost. And so we're trying to restore that just to get back to where we can support the animals that we have. But at some point, yeah, absolutely. It's hard for me to give you a time frame on that exactly, but it's certainly in the mix and is being discussed.
Been here quite a while. So when we burn, yes, anytime you have vegetation, you're gonna have a fire risk. Anytime you have deadfall on the ground, it's gonna have fire risk. But when we do the implementation of the prescribed burns, it reduces that fuel loading, takes the canopy out, pulls out all the subalpine fir, burns it, and yes, 15 years later, whatever, all that stuff will fall down, and you'll have the risk of fire on the ground. But that's a totally different scenario, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You've got the flame links; they're setting down at the 4-foot level, versus 200 plus that Brian had, or you'd see off of a fire like that. So the risk for firefighters, so if you had a fire, say in Monument Peak in 15 years, yeah, you're going to get a fire, it's going to burn there, but it's going to be on the ground, it's going to be 4-foot flame links, probably a small crew going to go in there and take care of it, or a small team of some sort. Whereas if that was to have a fire strike in there, say before the burn, then you're going to be dealing with a lot bigger organization, a lot more money, more like Brian Head type scenario, I guess. But I know it's a big extreme, but that's kind of the difference. And as far as ecologically doing anything with the logs, it's a natural thing. Trees burn, they fall over, it creates erosion control. There's no reason to need to go in and pull out the dead trees. It's just an increased disturbance in there if we, we're going to go do something. But